Hello wonderful people. In this video today I'm going to be talking about why it is unhelpful to pressure autistic people to act neurotypical. It's actually really harmful. So I don't have a problem with social skills classes. I do think it's good to, learn about two-way conversations, learn about conversation starters, conversation topics, because that is something I really struggle with, and it can be really helpful if we learn things like conversation starters, because I am so awkward in social situations when I'm like, I have no idea what to say. I know I'm supposed to be speaking, but I have no idea what to talk about. So I'm not really talking about teaching conversation skills, but I don't think it's appropriate to pressure autistic people to socialise when they don't feel comfortable to do so. This is because social interaction can be absolutely exhausting for autistic people, and too much social interaction may just drain us and lead to autistic burnout. For example, the pressure to go out and socialise every day, that can be really exhausting to an autistic person, because socialising and social skills, they don't come naturally to us, so we're constantly sort of thinking, well, what do we need to do in this situation? What do we need to do in this situation? And we might have sensory processing issues, so we're always trying to filter out the extra sensory input that other people automatically filter out. It's more exhausting for an autistic person to go out into social situations. So it's not really healthy to constantly pressure us to go outside and socialise with others, because it might just lead to pure exhaustion. And you might think, well, we're practicing for social skills, we're practicing for the real world. But in the real world, autistic people need to listen to their bodies to prevent burnout. So for me, for example, if I was to have to socialise with people every day, that would be an absolute nightmare. And it's not social anxiety. I don't get anxious talking to people. I can do public speaking and I never get any fear or adrenaline rush because I don't care what people think of me. But it's just that when I'm in a social situation, my nervous system I don't know how to explain it, hypervigilance. My nervous system just perks up a little bit. But if it keeps doing that, it can be exhausting. My nervous system has to be overactive in order to socialise, because it's doing something that doesn't come naturally to it. It's doing something that takes a lot of effort, therefore it can be exhausting. It's dangerous to push autistic people beyond their limits. It can lead to autistic burnout. Sorry about that noise. I was actually just fidgeting with my hairbrush and I dropped it. And autistic burnout is a horrible thing. It takes years to recover from. Autistic burnout is a state of absolute exhaustion and a decline in mental and physical health that can occur when autistic people just completely burn out because they are going against their neurology. They're going against what their body tells them to do. The thing is, there are also some autistic people who just don't have as much of an interest in social interaction. And it's not that they don't have friends or they don't care about their friends. They might care about their friends immensely, but they just might not feel like spending as much time socializing as other people because other things bring them more joy, and they may think that social interaction is like a chore. It might be so exhausting to them that it just feels like a chore, and they don't understand why people expect them to do it all the time. And I feel like going to school for some autistic people is absolutely exhausting, because your nervous system constantly has to go into that overactive state to mask, to be able to have a conversation, to be able to just function in that setting, and then you come back and you're absolutely exhausted because you are not able to relax or rest in that environment, because you're constantly just trying to process everything going on. You're constantly just trying to interact, and that is an exhausting state for autistic people to be in. that is exhausting, and it's not fair to expect people to live by neurotypical standards when they're not neurotypical. It's just not going to work effectively at all. It's just going to cause harm. Autistic people often do need more downtime to relax, because, as I said, social interaction takes more out of us than it does for the average person, because it doesn't come naturally to us. So for example, for me, after I've been out somewhere for the day, I have to have hours and hours to be able to wind down afterwards alone so that I'm able to sleep. And before a day where I'm expected to socially interact, I struggle to sleep, not because of anxiety, because I'm not anxious about social situations. I'm very confident. I can do public speaking without an issue, but it's more so I am aware of how much energy the next day socialising is going to take, and that is not fun. Another way in which people may pressure autistic people to act typical is with stimming. For example, I'm fidgeting and rocking back and forth. Some people might tell autistic people, oh, stop doing that, it's distracting to others, but telling us to stop doing this stuff isn't always helpful, because stimming is a tool. It's an ingrained tool. It regulates sensory input. When I'm rocking back and forth, I get a sense of where my body is in space. If I stop rocking, it feels really unnatural and I feel like I can't focus as well. So I'm really helping myself by rocking back and forth. And same with hand flapping. Hand flapping to me is very much an expression of emotion. It's so natural. Other people will smile when they're happy, I flap my hands. It's just a different way of expressing emotion, and we shouldn't have to be forced to, express it the same way as everyone else, because that's not what comes naturally to us. If we're flapping our hands, it actually it really, to me, amplifies the positive feelings. It releases endorphins, so it's a really good thing. And with the fidgeting, if I wasn't fidgeting, it'd be much harder to film this video because I wouldn't be able to focus on what I'm saying. Like, I have to be fidgeting in order to focus. So it never makes sense to me when teachers are like, oh, stop fidgeting, you're not listening, because in fact, it helps us focus, it helps us listen. Like, if I don't fidget, my thoughts, I can't grasp them as well. And, you know, if I'm not fidgeting, I can't make sense of my thoughts properly. So it's really important to let autistic people fidget if they need it. Fidgets are tools. And rocking back and forth, again, it's an ingrained tool, things like that. Another stim I do is when I'm sleeping, I kind of rub my feet together, and that relaxes me to be able to sleep. If I don't do that, it's very unlikely that I'll be able to fall asleep. It's really important to let us stim because our body is doing it for a reason. Our body is stimming in order to help us regulate sensory input and regulate emotions and express our emotions. Another thing is eye contact. A lot of autistic people are pressured to make eye contact, and that really isn't helpful. When I'm talking to people, I sometimes kind of stare this way. And sometimes when I'm filming, I stare that way as well when I'm speaking, and it looks like I'm reading off a script, but I'm not. But when I'm talking to people in person, I do that as well, and that's because sometimes if I'm making too much eye contact, I can't really focus on what I'm saying, especially if I'm already tired, or especially if I'm experiencing brain fog. I just can't put my thoughts together when I'm making eye contact. So if I make eye contact, I can't verbally communicate properly. So in that sense, again, eye contact is harmful to me, and a lot of autistic people find eye contact too intimate. It just doesn't feel natural, it feels wrong. We shouldn't be forced to do something that feels so unnatural and wrong to us, and something that prevents us from, you know, making sense of our own thoughts and prevents us from verbally communicating what we want to express. Do not force an autistic person to make eye contact because it is not helpful. Another thing which never made sense to me is sometimes parents of neurodivergent kids are told, you know, to not let their kid act younger than their age, which doesn't make any sense to me. For example, an autistic person may have an interest in collecting stuffed animals, and some people may say, no, that's inappropriate. They may try and normalize the person by taking away the stuffed animals and encouraging them or forcing them to collect something that's more age appropriate, but that doesn't make any sense because autistic people experience a lot of anxiety, overwhelm, stress, and just general difficulties in life. Life can be very hard for an autistic person, and the rates of anxiety and depression are pretty high in autistic people. So if something is bringing someone comfort and genuinely it isn't causing any harm, then why would you take it away from them just so they look normal? That doesn't make any sense because, again, that just harms the person. I have a stuffed animal collection. I'll show you. Ta-da! Yes, I am a 20-year-old who collects stuffed animals, and the thing is, some people might see that as a problem, but there are so many adults, even neurotypical ones, who collect stuffed animals, like squishmallows. That's a really big thing. For me, you know, the stuffed animals do bring a sense of comfort with them in my environment. It makes it a more calming and soothing environment. And, you know, just looking at them brings me joy because they're really, really cute, and they're in nice bright colours, like yellow is associated with happiness and stuff. And also, autistic people often struggle to make friends, so it can just give a sense of companionship. And if this is what helps someone, and if this is what makes someone feel calm, then you definitely should not take it away from them because they are using it to help them. You know, it bothers me that some people will try to normalise autistic people by taking away the things that help them. And again, a similar thing, some people will try to stop neurodivergent people from watching cartoons because they're like, oh, it's childish, and they want the person to act like an adult. But again, it's not causing any harm. It's allowing the person to reduce anxiety and wind down after stress and stuff. Therefore, that's actually going to help the person's mental health and prevent issues from arising, such as burnout and complex and dangerous mental health issues. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with watching cartoons if that's what helps someone. Like, every night, in order to get myself to sleep, I watch The Simpsons, which technically, you know, that is for older people anyway. But like, if someone has to watch cartoons every night, or a program that's seen as so-called childish, then so be it, because it's what helps them. It is what is giving them a better quality of life, and there is nothing wrong with that. Just because society sees it as different, that doesn't mean it's bad. Another thing is, you know, some people will pressure autistic people and say they need to expose themselves to the sensory input that distresses them, and that, you know, that doesn't make any sense. When it is how we are neurologically made, these sensitivities, they are ingrained. So for example, if someone hits you in the arm, it's gonna hurt. If an autistic person is in an environment with lots of loud noise and bright lights, then that is going to harm us. And yes, you know, someone may keep hitting you in the arm, and eventually you may develop some sort of build-up of scar tissue. Like, I've got in my chest a build-up of scar tissue because my tics kept hitting me. You may build up some scar tissue, which may reduce the pain, but technically you've just caused a new issue. So, like, if an autistic person is repeatedly in that environment where it's overwhelming to them, they may start to dissociate, and then they might trigger dissociation, and people may shame them saying, why are you dissociating so much? Why do you seem so unemotional and stuff? Like, either way, people will say things like that. But, you know, it's frustrating because if someone is autistic and they keep going in that environment that's overwhelming, it's just going to add to their stress and anxiety, which can cause health issues like high blood pressure, which is just going to hurt the individual. If you have a co-occurring condition as well, like Tourette's, for example, sensory overload can worsen tics, so that can be pretty disabling for someone like me. So I would say the best way to manage sensory processing issues isn't just to force the person into the environment that causes them distress, because you aren't going to change the way their brain is working based on that. It's not an anxiety response. It is a physical difference in the brain that does trigger anxiety, but it's not an anxiety problem at large. It is the wiring of the brain and how the brain is working. You just need to accommodate the person so that they can feel comfortable to prevent other issues from arising as a result of the sensory overload. Like, sensory overload will trigger meltdowns. Meltdowns are not bad behaviour, they are not a choice. They are uncontrollable, like a fight or flight response. A person may injure themselves or even others sometimes in a meltdown. And if you constantly force an autistic person to go against their own neurology, that is going to cause harm and trigger meltdowns. And that's really dangerous. So why would you even do that if you can accommodate the person and reduce meltdowns, which prevent harm to the individual and possibly others as well? As well as this burnout, I keep talking about autistic burnout because it's a huge issue. It can affect children, teenagers, adults, anyone who is autistic, and it is disabling. It takes years to get out of, and it causes a decline in mental and physical health and extreme exhaustion. So if you want an autistic person to reach their full potential, accommodate them and work with their neurology instead of against it. Don't try to normalize them or make them act neurotypical by forcing them to go against what helps them, because that is just going to lead to burnout, which means that a person may be unable then to hold down a job because they are too unwell to do so. If you want a person to reach their full potential, accommodate them and go with their neurology, work with their neurology. I'll show you some tools that help me manage sensory issues rather than just exposing myself to the sensory input. So here I have some tinted glasses. These are really, 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 really important for me to use. They may look a bit strange, but so what? If people judge me, that's a reflection of them and not me. They help me because when I'm in a very bright environment, I can't really focus on what I'm seeing properly. Everything seems like a bit of a blur and a daze because the light is just so overwhelming. I can't even read certain things on shelves and stuff, and bright lights can also trigger my dystonic tics, so I get stuck in certain positions uncontrollably. So to me, normalizing those neurological signals by accommodating my brain and using the sunglasses can be extremely helpful. It can prevent the dystonic tics and allow me to go around the environment more with actually being able to process what I'm seeing, what I'm reading, and that sort of thing. And I have also got some chew necklaces, like this one that I have shown on a video before, and I've also got this white one. And chew necklaces can be really helpful for some people. For example, when I was younger, I had a pacifier until I was 7 years old, and that may seem very atypical, but that's just because I was using it as a sensory and anxiety regulation tool. I was a very anxious young child. And now, as an adult, it calms me to use the chew necklaces. So there is a sensory need there, and I can accommodate that by using chew necklaces. So instead of, if an autistic person is using a pacifier, like, to help with that, to calm them down, then you could replace that with something like a chew necklace. And there are lots of chew necklaces on Etsy, Amazon, Chewy Gem, things like that. You can find something that works for the individual rather than just expecting them to go around without that form of sensory input that they need. Thank you so much everyone for watching this video. I hope that it's been helpful. Please comment your thoughts down below. Thank you for watching. Bye!